Yo, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in again. This might be the best YEAT-type beat I've made so far. I made it like last week. I was kind of happy how it turned out, so I thought I might make a full video about this. Yeah, it's inspired by the BNYX Dangerous Summer type of sound, you know? So it's not like the classic rage-type beat. It's a little bit more melodic in a way. I'd suggest you stay until the end of this because we're gonna talk in detail about sound selection, mixing, and a very unique bass technique that BNYX uses, which is layering different basses on top of each other. And that's something that I couldn't get to work when I first tried to make these beats. And that's what I want to show you here really quick, okay? So if I remember correctly, I actually started with the drums for this one. I basically pulled up this hi-hat, this snare, and the bass. A few things to point out here. Let's go from least interesting to most interesting. So like the hi-hat is just a two-step pattern, very basic stuff. I'd say you cannot go wrong with a two-step hi-hat pattern like that or these types of beats. The snare is actually not that artificial or digital. It sounds a little bit more live and warm. Talking about drum sounds, I want to give a quick shout out to Ray of Key. If you look up YEAT-type beat, you will find his channel. And he actually has a drum kit, which is where I got the snare from. The bass line is from a Playboy Cardi drum kit. I don't know, I listened to it and it sounded like YEAT to me, so I made a pattern with it. I'd actually recommend starting with a bass line for these types of beats because these beats live off bass lines, kinda, you know? It's not like there are very complicated melodies going on. The bass line is where the whole vibe comes from, at least for me, you know. What did I do afterwards? Let me think real quick. I think I laid down this kick. Yeah, pretty simple stuff. The next thing I laid down is the main melody pattern. It's this arp, and below that arp there are these little notes which basically follow the bass line. And that sounds like this. You want to layer the bass sound with a lot of different sounds, basically. Yeah, because as I said, the main vibe comes from the bass line. And by layering it, it gets more depth, you know, kinda. I pitched that pattern down by 1 octave for the choruses. I just did that to give the beat more variety, you know, because I did not want to add too much different melodic layers in there. And by just having one layer that's pitched down an octave, you have some different things to do throughout the arrangement part of doing things, you know. Then we have this lead pattern. You don't want to go all crazy, you know, and make a pattern like... For me, what works best is having like a range of 2 or 3 notes and alternating between those notes. That works really well for me. It has something nostalgic to it. I don't even know. I did that for my swag type beats and I just transferred my knowledge to this YEAT type beat. I then copied that lead pattern to another lead sound. In hindsight, I would have used another lead sound because this one is a little bit softer, you know. Let me just play it out for you. It's basically the same thought process as with the main layer where I just pitched it down for another part. I did not want the melody to become too complicated, but I wanted the melody to sound different throughout the loop. Holy fuck, nein, ich kann das so nicht machen. Before we move on, let me just show you the presets that I used. I think that will be kind of helpful for you. So the first thing I used is from Serum. It's a stock preset. It's the Rubber Echoes. You can find it within the synth category. The first lead that I just showed you is from Expand. It's also a stock preset. It's in the hard lead section. It's the 01 saw octave stack. And the second lead that I showed you is the 27 light square lead. It's within the soft lead section. Then let's move on to the next sound. It's also from Serum, Brass and Plugs pad. You can find it within the pad section, of course. I played that in using the MIDI keyboard, which is why these notes have different velocities. I don't really know if it actually does something. I don't remember, but it seems like I enjoyed it, so I kept it at these alternating velocities. Yeah. And the last thing that's in here is I don't even know what that is. It's from Serum, and it's another pad, and that one sounds like this. That one only sounds like that because I made this shaper box preset, because without this volume thing it would sound like this. but I wanted this layer to give the entire loop even more of a rhythm. So these two layers, they are just there to create an atmosphere. They basically replace chords in a way for me. That's how I understand it, at least. Yeah, they're just here to set like the scene, you know. It might be a little bit too full. Honestly, I thought about leaving this layer out because you can barely hear it anyways. I just wanted to point that out because you could delete some of these sounds and give the artist more room to breathe, you know. Yeah, so the entire melody on its own sounds like that. Now to the very interesting part for these types of beats. I could not get this right for the first 10 tries of me making these beats.
Oh my god, nothing sounds close. It sounds so fucking terrible, bro. I'm getting so pissed off right now. No, I hate this. I fucking hate this. That fucking sound sucks.
BNYX likes to layer bass sounds on top of each other, and that's something that's intuitively wrong for me, because when you watch mixing tutorials and beat production tutorials, one of the first things you learn is to not stack bass sounds on top of each other, because it will kind of interfere. You have to really trust your ears to get this to work. So we have this layer right here. I did not low cut any of the bass sounds, if I remember correctly. No, I didn't. Like, the trick here is to use a bass sound that sits in a different frequency spectrum than the first one you used. So this one is a very deep bass. It doesn't have, it doesn't have too much going on in the high end. So I kind of looked for a bass sound that's more sawish and has a lot of harsh high frequencies. And what's very important is that you use the same notes as in your first bass pattern. So if I had decided to keep this on the root note, that does not sound as pleasing as... And you really have to trust your ears here, because how do I explain this? Like, minor problems can lead to big issues. Just as an example, it might sound kind of bad because the basses cancel each other out and they get more quiet instead of more energetic as they play simultaneously. But for this combination of bass sounds, it kind of worked for me, so I did not low cut it. In my opinion, you should try to get two bass sounds that work in the first place instead of low cutting one of them, because it does not create the same sound. Like, this kind of distorted, dirty sound is what makes a lot of the vibe. Holy fuck. I layered another bass sound on top of that. It kind of sounds bad as we just have the bass lines playing, but if you listen to it all together, it kind of works, you know. Same rule as before. I also just use the same bass note that's playing in the main bass pattern anyways at the exact same time. F sharp here, F sharp here. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say. That's basically it. I have this YEAT bell, of course. You have to make sure that it's tuned to C, so you can make a little counter melody using that bell. I just have a crash here on the one, and like, because this kind of sound is very bass heavy, you can use a lot of open hats and crash sounds to contrast the overall dark sound of the beat. Another tip that I want to give you is having the hi-hats and open hats and crashes play louder than usual, because you kind of need them to be louder so you fill out that high frequency space, you know. You see, like, there's just something missing in the high end. It's just way more energetic having all these high-end drum sounds in here. So that's basically it. Thank you for staying until the end of this video. If you enjoyed, leave it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed. The videos every Friday on this channel, so I hope to see you next week. Make sure to check out my other cookups, and other than that, I'll see you next week. Bye.